Tower of Babel is destroyed within moments by enshrouding doom, an ending of biblical proportions which foreshadows the current apocalyptic, industrial yet fleshy landscape populated by impossible horrors as if from the depths of damnation itself. A nameless figure, dressed in a gas mask, only credited as the assassin, descends through the circles of this hell, through torture, desolation, and extermination, destined to meet his own end, an inevitability for all existence. This is Phil Tippett's labour of love, Mad God, a textured, apocalyptic phantasmagoria which embraces abrasive, surrealist world-building so dense that it often feels like we're only scratching just the surface of a dismal life which expands to an impossible scale. Phil Tippett's expertise in special effects wizardry is essential here behind Mad God's fusion of intricate stop-motion animation and live-action absurdity. Every creature and life form torn from deep-seated terrors, each movement and action carrying grotesque weight. While Mad God is mostly narrative-free, in the conventional sense, there is visual commentary the audience can delve into through its most vivid sequences, from the exploitation of workers, the finite nature of mortality, and the inevitable downfall and rebirth inherent within existence. The first notable aspect of Mad God is how the film looks. It's decadently filthy, beautiful in its grotesquerie, an extreme demonstration of the excess within Tippett's imagination. Mad God is populated by unpredictable creations, terrible creatures, and awful monstrosities that could give Ray Harryhausen nightmares. No landscape here ever looks the same, shifting between the industrial, the bodily, the gory, the medical, and pure desolation, a result of never-ending war and the death of previous civilizations. This terribly expansive world is a labour of love, a production in the works for decades, as Phil Tippett worked on other hugely successful films which became household names. Leslie Felperin discusses this in her review of Mad God for The Guardian, stating that this extraordinary work, made mostly with stop-motion animation and the odd human performer, has been in production off and on for roughly 30 years, possibly making it cinema's longest side hustle. Tippett reportedly constructed his grotty, Bushian monsters and set them fighting and futzing about a hellish, intricate landscape in his off time. That was when he wasn't designing and overseeing robots and creatures for Paul Verhoeven's films, such as RoboCop and Starship Troopers, doing visual effects for the vamps and werewolves on the Twilight Saga, or breathing life into the dinosaurs for the Jurassic Park franchise and beasties in the Star Wars world. While better known for his works on Jurassic Park and Star Wars, including an impressive array of experience across many other cult and popular films, the creation of Mad God throughout his career illustrates Tippett's sense of endurance and flexibility as a filmmaker, intent on achieving his apocalyptic vision no matter how long it took, never distracting from his wider output. Tippett is likely aware that Mad God would never see the level of mainstream success as Twilight or RoboCop, especially as his film embraces a lack of narrative, or maybe more appropriately, an anti-narrative. While conventional storytelling isn't present here, Mad God does acknowledge loose notions of narrative. Later in a review, Leslie Felperin discusses this freer approach to storytelling, stating that this is undoubtedly a work of historic significance, made by a master in his field, but beware that it often feels like a filmmaking notebook, full of doodles and ideas, but not especially cohesive as a story. There is a through line of sorts, involving a character dressed like a deep-sea diver, descending into the underworld on a mysterious mission that is ultimately thwarted. The assassin, the nameless protagonist, is clearly undertaking a task, even if the character's intended goal or result is unclear to us. Thematic details of desolation and destruction foreshadow the film's imagery of civilization's creation and demise, and within Mad God there is plenty of subtextual commentary. While the film doesn't present us with a conventional tale, reinforcing Felperin's remark that it feels like a filmmaking notebook, characters aren't recognisable enough for us to latch onto and empathise with. The film's series of events are seemingly tied together through loose associations, and scenes stem into unexpected tangents that have little interest in circling back to previous events. Mad God does present us with subtextual ideas on exploitation, the limitations of mortality, and the cyclical death and rebirth of civilization. As the assassin delves further into the depths of this terrible world, he discovers a manufacturing plant, an industrial landscape populated by enslaved workers made from slop, and their cruel, crass superiors who whip them, crush them, and literally shit everywhere. It's an ugly terrain, where workers resort to taking their own lives, where death is the only solace. As a baby babbles orders over the speakers, the intended evocation here is oppression, exploitation of vulnerable beings for the benefits of those in positions of power, businesses that cut corners for their own profits at the risk of their employees, fascist dictatorships that intend on keeping their citizens subservient to their authority, an individual's manipulation over another to get exactly what they want. This sequence is reminiscent of each of these examples, and the way Phil Tippett intentionally portrays the scenery as disgusting, callous, tinged with tragedy over how there is no end in sight except in death, or how authority is no sharper than a babbling baby. It's clear that Tippett himself has only condemnation for authoritarian cruelty. Beyond exploitation, mortality and its limitations is present within Mad God too. These workers die, they die en masse, and they die easily. Their death is often quick, sometimes within the blink of an eye, and then nothing, it's over. Mountainous piles and piles of dead litter the landscape, these nameless beings never to be known or remembered. Or how the assassin, once dragged away by a horrendous creature, can be so easily replaced. Within Mad God, there is no consideration for the souls which resided within a fleshy form. Maybe there's no soul whatsoever, and that a living being is solely an object in which a purpose needs to be fulfilled, discarded shortly after. This is also reinforced in a gory dissection sequence in which a nameless doctor tears through the bandaged body of a patient, separating flesh and organs in favour for the jewels and gold which hides deep inside of the life form. Here, the body, the life's only purpose seems to be to provide money for the bloodthirsty doctor, possibly a cynical reflection on the damning costs of the American healthcare system, and to provide the next generation of life for the benefit of others. Once its purpose is fulfilled, the body is killed and abandoned. It's a pessimistic outlook, but Mad God suggests that living is to only serve as the subject of objectification, and then we die. We are born to be used, then destroyed. Our destruction comes in the inevitability of being forgotten. This cold reflection isn't dissimilar to Mad God's final thematic focus, a continual cycle of rebirth and demise, rebuilding and destruction. The Tower of Babel is built, intending to unify humanity under one language and civilization, but collapses. Signs of dead civilizations remain on the assassin's journey, abandoned suburbs and decrepit skyscrapers, and yet a civilization of monsters endures. And within the film's climactic sequence reminiscent of the Big Bang, the formation of cells develops into fish and fetuses, evolving over fast-forwarded eras of development where cities are built before they collapse. This is a continual cycle on an anti-biblical scale, reflective of the entirety of human existence. Civilizations come and go. Our time is finite, and that means so are our creations. And yet it is inherent within existence to create and destroy, like we ourselves strive for the powers of gods, either unable to contain our own dreadful potential, or embracing a man-made deity status that results in the smiting of others. Mad God might be a world that forms as a result of straying too far from some fearsome deity. After all, the opening quote from Leviticus promises to damn us to desolation, but the atrocious existence within the film may also be a reflection of the inescapable devastations present in simply being. If existing is the original sin, the world of Mad God is our just reward. In conclusion, Phil Tippett's Mad God is an example of a special effects maestro giving a niche audience a masterpiece. It's a dreadful existence within this fantastical terror, full of transgressive imagination and ultimate despair. While it's a stretch to say Mad God has a story, it's clear there's plenty to reflect upon how it depicts exploitation, mortality, and existence. The film is a dense creation which can be viewed as open to interpretation, or as a sensorial nightmare to wash over the viewer. Either way, the experience is nothing short of a master filmmaker's outstanding vision, and it is an atrocious curse to witness it. A special thank you to my incredible tier Patreon supporter Gil, and my super tier Patreon supporters Constantine Bombelli, Jamie and Milkway.